I was going to do a complete recap of all the Steelers free agent moves, but we have some bigger fish to fry on a Monday. Big Deke News. This morning on Get Up, ESPN's NFL analyst Dan Orlovsky gave his best free agent team fit for Odell Beckham Jr. He just so happened to say the Pittsburgh Steelers. Have a listen as to why he thinks this way.
Pittsburgh Steelers. I look at the AFC, Brian. I say you got to add firepower or people to slow down firepower because of the Chiefs. This automatically does that for Pittsburgh. One, organizational structure, and the head coach knows what he's doing. There's a standard, a culture, an everyday expectation he's going to walk right into. Two, cheap quarterback with Kenny Pickett right now. You're trying to build around that because he is cheap and you're trying to get him to play as well as possible. And just imagine this offense if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Najee Harris at tailback, who's still an awesome player. Then you got George Pickens, who's a burgeoning star at that position. Deontay Johnson and Pat Freiermuth at tight end. And you add Odell. Now we're talking about an offense that's got weapons and actual firepower to go chase down a Cincinnati Bengals, to go chase down a Kansas City Chiefs football team. So there's a lot of teams that we could say Odell's going to be a good addition. But if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm sitting there going, man, if we add this guy and he's capable of playing the way he did on that Super Bowl run, our offense becomes very much so challenging the Cincinnati Bengals when it comes to firepower.
Let's be real. Everything he's saying is 100% accurate. Imagine this Steelers offense with Odell Beckham Jr. and all the linemen we just picked up. So add him to the weapon room. Pickens, Deontay, Odell, Pat Freiermuth, Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren. Now we have a solid offensive line. Wouldn't have to worry about drafting a receiver. So you could spend that first pick, those first two picks then, obviously on left tackle and cornerback, whichever way you want to spin it. But you're bringing in Odell Beckham Jr., and we know there is some stuff that comes with that. First thing to consider is the cost. You got to break the bank for Odell, because there are reports out there that say he wants in upwards of like $20 million per year. That's clearly way too much. He ended up refuting those reports and saying, like, listen, I'm not looking for 20. It's just that $4 million per year is too little, which I agree with him on. 20, too much. Steelers couldn't afford that. 4, that's not enough for a guy like Odell, even coming off of the ACL. So the happy medium is probably somewhere between like 8 or 10 million, which at this point the Steelers could afford. I've been seeing some reports that even after all these free agent signings, Steelers are still like $10 million under the cap. And if you're bringing in a guy like Odell, I feel like that's a reasonable price, right? 8 or 9 million, 1 year deal. We could fit it under our cap. There's obviously still restructures we could be doing. So it doesn't kill us at all to bring him in. The second thing to consider, though, is what does the offense look like with Odell? We talked about all the stars and stuff, but how many times did we see in Cleveland? Now, obviously, he was a superstar up in New York. In Cleveland, though, when he would get hurt, the Browns' offense would get better. They would win more games without Odell because they would get back to simply just running the ball and not trying to force feed it to Odell because they traded for him. They were paying him a sizable contract. And sometimes that's just how it works. If you're paying a dude money, you want to capitalize on your resources and get the dude the ball, even though sometimes it can be a detriment to the team and the offense. So I don't want, especially with a young quarterback in Kenny Pickett, where all I simply want him to do, and I think you guys can all agree, is just make the right reads and focus on moving the offense and winning football. Not, hey, how many targets do we have to get Odell this game? Because that can clog up the offense and just make it go to shit, which is something Odell actually might enjoy. And then the third thing, could we just say drama? It goes back to the top of what I was talking about. If you bring in Odell Beckham, there's just stuff that comes with that. He's been a superstar football player. And going back to New York, he was always in the headlines. Now, I could see the New York media overblowing stuff and just nitpicking and trying to fabricate stories out of nowhere. At the same time, there was the vacation trip before the playoff games. I know, obviously, it wasn't just him. It was a bunch of the players on the team. But he was there, him kicking over the field goal net and then proposing to it later. Like, if that's the worst of it, I don't know. I probably would side on that shit was overblown. Odell just so happened to be in New York. But then going back to Cleveland, we know some of the stuff that was going on there. I already mentioned when he would get injured, the Browns team would do better. Now, that has nothing to do necessarily with drama, but how it ended, his dad calling out Baker Mayfield for not throwing it to Odell when he was opening stuff. Like, we don't want that potentially here in Pittsburgh. If Kenny Pickett, for some reason, doesn't throw the ball to Odell as much as Odell wants on a given Sunday, we don't need every single all 22 tape to come out and Odell's dad like nitpicking, oh, Kenny missed Odell here. Like, that's just not what we want. Then the rebuttal to those two situations is what happened out with the LA Rams. You didn't hear about any drama. You didn't hear a peep. Odell just went out there, balled out, won a Super Bowl ring, and that was that. What did the Rams have? They had a veteran quarterback. They had already a wide receiver one established in Cooper Kupp, a coach that doesn't micromanage, that knows how to deal with players, lets them be themselves, a bunch of other veteran presences across the board, and Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey. I think you also had Whitworth on the offensive line. So those are also things to consider, whereas I don't think Odell was really in that good of situations with the Giants. When it was good is when Eli Manning was playing good, but when it wasn't is when Eli Manning started to play bad and the offense and the Giants just weren't that good of a team. And then the Browns, we already know they're a dumpster fire. So it does make me curious if Odell got with the Steelers. Now, there are a little bit of differences with this team versus that Rams team. Much younger team. Pickett only in his second year versus Stafford, who is, I don't know, what, in his like 11th or 12th season maybe. We don't really have an established wide receiver one just yet. We believe it's going to be Pickens. But across the board, we just have a really young offense. And then on defense, although we are bringing in some leadership, we are bringing in some guys. The one I could think of is Isaac Seumalo right now. I guess, yeah, Herbig's still a little bit young. But then on defense, we do got Landon Roberts. He won a couple Super Bowls. He's up there. He's more of a veteran. Cole Holcomb, Patrick Peterson, obviously. So that we are building. It's a young team, but we still have a little bit of that veteran presence there. You could throw Minka in there too, a TJ Watt, a Cam Hayward. Offense, young in general, but you also have a Tomlin, really good coach, a coach that the players respect. A coach that, remember the rumors back whenever we played the Browns? This was probably like 2-3 years ago. Odell said to Tomlin after one of the games we had at Heinz Field between the Steelers and the Browns, he said, like, hey, come get me. Like, this is a bad situation. So, oh, man. Orlovsky kind of talked me into it. I think we talked about this on the podcast, like, it was probably like 2-3 weeks ago. And I said, no, I just don't want, actually, no, I think it was just last week. I said, no, I don't want the potential downside that could come with Odell. But the more I think about how things played out with the Rams, it could work. It could work. It could work. I said no, but now I don't think I'm as opposed. I mean, the offense will be crazy. I feel like Kenny can make it work with Odell. I think that's my thing. If Kenny is the leader that we think he is, why can't it work? I think Kenny can gain Odell's respect for sure. Just by playing, just by working hard. Like, I don't think Kenny's Baker. Kenny at this point and where he's going to be at in his career is going up, whereas Eli Manning early on in Odell's career was at a good point, but then he started going down. Man, I think we're playing with, I will admit, I do think we'd be playing with fire a little bit because all these pickups, all these signings that we're making and just the culture and the foundation we're bringing to this Steelers team is just like no nonsense, blue collar, like just keep your head down, no drama. Whereas, whether it is his fault or not, there has been drama throughout Odell Beckham's career in multiple stops that he has made. Was I right in my initial reaction by just saying no? Or should we be? open to Odell coming to Pittsburgh? Let me know in the comments. Stay chilling on a Monday. Peace.